Hi, nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Tom, and thank you very, very much for being here. I'm actually very both excited. I mean, every time there is this kind of event for Starknet, so I get more and more excited as the time goes by, and also very, I don't know, humble, right? So I mean, excited because it's a very big event. So today we're in Israel. So my wife is here, my father is here. My grandmother was also supposed to be here, but unfortunately she broke her leg. She's okay, but just couldn't make it. So yeah, I'm very excited. My kids, they're in the kindergarten. Don't take them from there. Yes, so, and humble because, you know, every time it just feels more and more bigger than us. I remember this feeling when, in April in Amsterdam, there was the first Starknet hackathon, and I arrived there and I was just a guest. There are many people working on Starknet, and I was not interrupting them. So I have the same feeling each time there is a big Starknet event. So now it's a StarkWare event, but I'm a Starknet guy. So this is what we're going to talk today. So I have two purposes for this talk. One is to give you an update, the same one that we had in Lisbon, on what's the priorities for Starknet, what's the plan ahead, how we delivered on the priorities that we defined 3 months ago. But also, since we're in Israel, it's a good opportunity to actually meet the people that I'm telling you about their job, right? So hopefully, when I say something, I will say the name, the guy will raise their hand. Okay, Yoni, you ready? And you will be able to go talk with them afterwards and dive into the details because we're just touching the surface here. Okay, great. So let's dive in. Also, the second objective was after I submitted the presentation, and they are very strict with the deadline, so I don't have all the names, but try to remember. Okay, so when we discussed 3 months ago on Lisbon, those were the 3 priorities that we defined for Starknet, right? One is to improve the performance, specifically the throughput. The other one was to release Cairo 1. And the third one was to progress toward the seamless Regenesis. Okay, so I want to start by going over each one of those and seeing how we did and what is still planned. And then at the end, we have a surprise, new priority. So try to think during the presentation what is missing. Let's see who guessed it. Okay, so I'll start with Cairo 1 because it's really exciting. There was a lot of progress, and we have a lot of talks about it in the StarkWare sessions. So Cairo 1.0 Alpha 2 was released 2 weeks ago, I think. Thank you very much. I think we have Gil here. Where is Gil? Hello, Gil. So Gil is from the compiler team. He's doing a great job. You can grab him later. It's called Alpha 2 because it's not yet the stable version, but it's still pretty amazing. And what's really, really amazing is seeing the pace of development there. So I encourage everyone to go to the repo and just see, it's a beauty, seeing the progress and the pace. And to be honest, we aimed for it to be shipped a bit earlier. But I think what we missed was on the estimation of what it needed to do and not on the way the team execute. So on that end, this is Cairo 1. And there are 3 talks, not 4. Yeah, okay, nice, thank you. So we have 4 talks about Cairo in the StarkWare sessions. Yuval will be discussing Cairo 1 status, I think on this stage later today. So basically where we started, what we have today, deep dive into what the language can offer. So you're welcome to join. And Shachar will talk about how not to build a compiler, and also about Sierra, what it is, what we plan to achieve with it, and how we do it. And Ori, which is the team leader, will talk about how we do resource estimation in Cairo, right? For example, how do we prove a program consumed specific amount of resources, and this is a really important property for Starknet. So this is Cairo 1. What can you do with Alpha 2? So a nice example is you can write an ERC20 contract. You can see here, I omitted some of the stuff, but basically you can see here a structure of a contract. You can see how we import a syscall, how do we define storage or mapping, an event, a function. Nice stuff, right? And this is actually applicable today. What is not yet applicable? What is not applicable is the ability to deploy it and run it on Starknet. And I know we've done not the best job in explaining the separation here, so I'll try again. And if not, I'll try again in the next event. But you can't deploy it yet on Starknet because the Starknet and Cairo are not the same thing, right? Starknet is a system, is a blockchain, and Cairo is a language, which we use in Starknet to write contracts and also to write Starknet itself, but it has a life of its own. So the ability to write contracts and deploy them on Starknet is independent from Cairo 1. Did it help? Hopefully. In any case, you will be able in the next version, so maybe you'll forget about it soon. So 0.11, and now it's the time for Yoni to raise his hand and all the team. So they're working on 0.11, and they're adding the support in Starknet to deploy and execute Cairo 1 contracts. If you want to understand what it means or why do we need to add the support, then I encourage you to go. I hope you, I didn't ask for his approval, but go and talk with Yoni, okay? And when we have this change, oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that Cairo 1 Alpha 2 is out, but what is the next milestone, or when will we say, okay, Cairo 1 is out? Basically, when we reach feature parity with Cairo 0, okay? So when you'll be able to port everything that you've written in Cairo 0 to Cairo 1, we'll reach feature parity with Cairo 0. And once we have those two versions collide, 0.11 and Cairo 1 release, we'll begin the transition period. Now, this relates to the third point of the Regenesis, okay? Good. So what is the transition period? Basically, developers, you, will start migrating their code from Cairo 0 to Cairo 1, right? And this is with the goal of transitioning the whole Starknet stack to not use Cairo 0 contracts and only use Cairo 1. And this is basically the purpose and the motivation for what we call the Regenesis. Now, the only thing I want you to remember about Regenesis is that you only need to care about you porting your code, right? The migration itself, the event is seamless. It has no breaking change. It will have no effect on the developers or the users apart from migrating the code to Cairo 1. Okay, and let's try to leave it at that. So this is Cairo 1 and Regenesis. The other thing we said was performance, right? So back then, I remember the Telegram groups. It was not nice, but throughput was a real pain. Yes, I will leave it at that. So throughput was a real pain, and 0.10.2 introduced parallelization to Starknet. Again, Yoni team, you can ask him, Yoni and Eileen. Eileen is not here, I think. Are you here? Okay, okay. But both of them. So we added parallelization, and it was actually a dramatic change in the development experience, right? There was the backlog that was used to be in the testnets, vanished. And even though we didn't reach the throughput or what we want to have for Starknet in any way, it was a very good solution for the time being. Okay, but it was not enough. So what is the next plan? 0.12 is the next big deal. Okay, and what I mean by that? So 0.12, the focus of it will be, again, to improve performance. And how we plan to do that? By basically integrating the new Shiny sequencer that was announced. I wrote it last week, but it was announced 2 weeks ago. Announced and open source. Maybe it's a good time to, I don't know, clap. I don't know, never mind. Yeah, because it's actually very exciting. It's, if you know or don't know, when we started Starknet, we used the StarkX infrastructure, basically, if you heard about StarkX from the last presentation, which was a very good solution to start something very quickly, but it was not suitable for prime time, right? And now, for the past, I think, 4 months, since November, we've been working on a new implementation for the sequencer, which is with performance in mind, in Rust. We implement there all the lessons we've learned, and it's really good. And 0.12 will basically be adding this sequencer to Starknet, right? And it's a threefold improvement. What do I mean by that? I mean, we can... OK, yeah. So there are 3 things that we're going to change in this version. First and foremost is the block execution logic. So when we take transaction and execute a block, this is logic that if we improve it, we improve the throughput. But there are other components in the life of a block that we need to improve. The first one is actually the Cairo execution, right? So we want to run a transaction. We want to run a contract. We run their Cairo. So 0.12 will also use the amazing work that was done by Lambda class and integrate the Cairo RS or the Cairo VM in Rust to Starknet. So this is 2. And 3, we also announced, I think it was at the beginning of the month, Papyrus, which is the internal full node that we've been working on for the past 6 months, I think. You can see it down here. It was also opened in an open source manner, and we will use it for the state management. Basically, how do you do reads, how do you do writes for the storage? So this will also be in a very efficient and performant way. Yeah. OK, there is a graphic that's supposed to show the new sequencer, which is the block execution. What? Eileen, hello. This is Eileen, guys. Again, I didn't ask for her approval, but if you want to understand what we're doing in this new sequencer, so this is Eileen and her team. Maybe Alon is here or everyone. It's not working. And there's nice graphics. OK, what I want to say is basically that the same approach that we had for Starknet Alpha and in generally for Starknet, oh, there you go, we also apply it to the sequencer, right? So we're not building the whole sequencer client that will be used in the Starknet decentralized protocol and only then releasing it. We're approaching it in the same way. We're building it modules and modules. Still not working, but it's OK. No worries. So we're doing the same thing in the sequencer, right? We're starting from a very specific module, which we call the blockifier. Maybe it's not the best name, but you understand what it does, right? It creates blocks and executes them. And specifically in the blockifier, what I wanted to show you is that in 0.12, we'll have the 3 components, right? The blockifier itself, using the Cairo VM, relying on the Papyrus for the state management. OK, amazing. Now, OK. So this is Henry's work. You can also talk with him about memes. But in general, we love to, in Starknet, to be very pioneers. So we were the first ZK rollup in production, the first ZK rollup to support general computation, the first layer to actually implement account abstraction, and also the first L2 to add parallelization. And now, I'm also very happy to announce that we'll be the first L2 that removes parallelization. Yes, it's OK. Come on. Yes, so it's just a fun fact, but basically the current sequential implementation of the sequencer is just much more performant. But it will be back, so no worries. But currently, yeah, apologies, Yoni. OK, great. So this is the performance. Hopefully, we'll have questions at the end. Let's see. OK, so a new boy in town. Did you think what is the next priority? Anyone? Anyway, don't say, because maybe it's not the correct one. OK, but the next thing is you can move. Thank you. Cost reduction. And this is very, very important, because even though Starknet today is cheap, for example, if you take, I don't know, a swap transaction, then you can probably get 10x reduction in cost compared to Ethereum. But 10x is not enough, right? We want to reach, I don't know, 100x. Or there are some other types of computation that are just not cheap enough So even though you can do them in Ethereum, you want to do them in Starknet, but it's still not cheap enough, right? So we want to make it cheaper. And if we look at a transaction, what is the actual ratio between the costs? So we have two main components. One is just the L2 computation. By L2 computation, I mean Cairo execution, signature verification, everything like that. So this is one part, and the other part is the L1 data. We are a rollup. Every state diff that we have, we post to L1, right? If not, come later, I'll explain what it means. And this is actually, if we look at, in average, this is 95% of the cost, which is, to me, it was quite shocking, but maybe it's also very, I don't know, nice. Anyway, but we still want to lower both components. And why is that? Because there are transactions, for example, let's say I want to use a hardware signer and sign a transaction with the cryptography that I have on my iPhone, right? So if we want to implement it today on Starknet, it is cheap, but not as cheap as a regular transaction, so most people probably won't use it. And this is mostly costly in the L2 computation department. And there are many other applications that are heavy on the L2 computation department, so we want to make both of them cheaper. Okay, so let's see what's planned. Okay, great. So for the L2 computation part, it's actually very easy. We just reduce it by 5x. Done, right? Yeah, it's not that easy because actually the main factor there, or what allows us to do this reduction, is what size of proofs we're able to generate. And as Eli said, and as Gidi, you can raise your hand, will say, I think maybe today or tomorrow, I don't know, we added recursion to our proof system 3 months ago or something like that. And also Shachar who did it. Hello. So Shachar implemented it. And that allowed us to, as Eli said, create much bigger proofs. Now, because of that, we can, in 0.11, just reduce the cost of per Cairo step, and we did all the cost of the L2 computation by 5x. And I think this is just the beginning, but we want to take it slowly. So this is for the L2 part. For the on-chain data part, after I wrote it and published it, I thought maybe we should announce it better. But basically, we're adding volition to Starknet, which is kind of a big deal, right? I mean, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, the plan is in 0.13 to add the ability to use off-chain data availability in Starknet. And to begin with, we plan for this data availability method to be like 10x cheaper than just publishing on it on L1. Now, we don't have time to deep dive into it. And if there are people from the hacker house that visited our offices, I tried to deep dive with them, but it seems, anyway, we don't have the time for it. So I'll just say, in a very high level, what is the main ideas, and hopefully soon we'll release a more detailed design plans, and hopefully you'll give us feedback. But the idea is to allow developers in the contract level, in the storage cell level, to decide which data availability mode they want to use, right? So when I write, I don't know, I want to write my balance, I can decide if it will be on-chain or off-chain. And also the idea is that this is not just two data availability modes. So it's not just use on-chain data availability and off-chain data availability. The design, as we now plan to roll it out, allows you to be very modular, and to add more data availability solutions as time progresses. Okay, so those are like the high-level ideas. And just to give an example, the way we plan to implement the ERC20 once we have that is in some kind of a hybrid solution. So I think about it like a wallet and a bank. I can define some part of my balance to be in the on-chain, secure, but expensive part. And that will be like my bank. I don't touch it a lot, but it's there. And I have the guarantee of L1 security that it will remain there. But I can also have some smaller part, which is like a wallet that I can use for my day-to-day, I don't know, payments or paying fees or stuff like that, which will be on the, apologies, on the off-chain part, which is, it will be cheaper. It will have the security guarantees of the L2 consensus, which, in my opinion, is very, very strong for a large range of applications. And this is an idea on what developers will be able to do once we give them this power to decide in the storage cell level what the data availability mode will be. For example, Julian is here, so I'm very curious to see how this will be added into the accounts. What part need to be on-chain, what part can be off-chain, and in general, it follows the same method that we have with account abstraction, right? We give power to developers and let them do the innovation on the applicative part. So this is Volition. I'm very excited by it. I mean, for a long time it was on the roadmap, but now that we made progress on other parts, we can finally find time and do that, and I think it will be quite life-changing for Starknet developers. Yeah, so just to sum up, we have 1.5 minutes, so apologies, but there won't be a lot of time for questions, so just catch me later. But this is the roadmap as I plan it, or we plan it currently. I mean, as we know, things might change, but we're currently here, and we'll progress there. But basically, Starknet 0.11 will introduce Cairo 1 into Starknet, and hopefully, this is the plan, we'll start the transition period toward the Regenesis. Now, once this is behind us, 0.12 will bring us the performance trio, the blockifier, Cairo RS, and Papyrus into Starknet, and will hopefully give us a huge leap in performance. And lastly, 0.13, which will focus on cost reduction, specifically via volition in Starknet. Now, I talked about Starknet Core, right? So what we plan to do to improve like the core features of Starknet. But you'll have to believe me, there are other efforts, right? So we plan, or the goal for Starknet is to be decentralized, and we truly mean that. And being decentralized, it means both in the protocol side and in the decision-making side. And I really encourage you to join, oh, there you go. To join 2 talks, one on decentralization, which will be done by Ilya. Ilya? Okay. Which will be done by Ilya tomorrow. And I think it will be very, very interesting because basically we're trying to tackle this problem for, okay, just 10 seconds. We're trying to tackle this problem for 2 years now. And I think now we're at a place where we have a very good understanding on the framework, right? The L2 versus L1, sequencers and provers, how we add incentive to that. And he will share this understanding with you. And I think we're at a very good place to actually progress toward actual implementations. So this is one. And governance, which will be done by Sylv and maybe Daven and Manor here. Hello. No need. Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. Which will explain the first phase and the second phase of how we want to gradually move toward a status where also the decision-making for Starknet roadmap and Starknet protocol changes will be decentralized. And hopefully, I don't know, 6 months from now, maybe someone else can be here in my place and explain what Starknet plans for its roadmap. So yeah, thank you very much. Again, I'm really excited to be here. It's amazing. And I'm here for any question you might have. Also Yoni, Elin, Dan, Manor, Shachar. Very good people. Thank you.